Alright everybody, welcome into a brand new Pokemon Go PvP video. If you've been following along with the Play Pokemon regional tournaments, you're probably aware that HouseStark93 swept the Baltimore regionals 8-0. Incredible plays, incredible player. We're actually going to review his battles and just get a peek, maybe some insights into the mind of one of the best battlers in the entire world. I can't wait to get into these. And this is also new for us because this is show 6, and I know we typically cover a lot of Go Battle League on the channel, so I think I'm going to try to provide as many insights as I can and maybe open up some opportunities for people that aren't so familiar with the format. That being said, I'm still traveling. I'm actually holding the camera right now, so I'm going to turn the face cam off for these battles. Let's get right into it. Alright, here we go. We've got HouseStark on the right side versus Silent Beast. As we talked about in the intro, HouseStark went 8-0 in the Baltimore regionals. We got 4 of his sets on stream. One of those was during day 1, but I only took these battles from day 2. This is his first round of the day 2 of the tournament, and if he wins this, he advances to the winners finals, and then if he wins the winners finals, obviously he finds himself in the grand finals. But we're going to start here with the Silent Beast match. Silent Beast running a very interesting team. He's actually running Trevenant, Altaria, Galarian Stunfisk, Purified Sableye, Bastiodon, and Sirfetch'd over on the left side versus HouseStark's team, which is the Alolan Ninetales, Obstagoon, Noctowl, Galarian Stunfisk, Trevenant, and Shadow Swampert down there in the bottom right corner. I know it's covered, but I'm going to uncover it in just a second here. Now, I'm going to talk through these team compositions through the leads and essentially how HouseStark finds unique and creative ways to play out of bad situations, and he actually runs a strategy that I don't think we've seen before in the regional tournaments that turns out to be quite effective, and I'm going to get into that as well. He's a very unique player, and he's one of the best in the world at making adjustments. So let's go ahead and jump into game number 1 here. Again, this is day 2. He's going to face off against Silent Beast with a double steel line. Bastiodon is a tough Pokemon to play in show 6 because you can't really hide it in the back like Go Battle League. So we do see the Bastiodon come out here, and before we get into the game, let's look at the teams. We have Bastiodon on the left for Silent Beast. He has Sirfetch'd and Altaria. Okay, and then on the right side, we've got Galarian Stunfisk with Trevenant and Noctowl for HouseStark. So HouseStark's team is built to defeat a Sirfetch'd lead. For example, if he encountered the Sirfetch'd here, he could swap into the Trevenant, and then his opponent could respond, and then once the Trevenant was KO'd, he still had the Noctowl to take out that counter user. So he's running kind of an ABB style team that's weak to counter in the lead, but strong against counter in the back. Now for Silent Beast, this team's a bit interesting. He's got the Bastiodon, the Steel lead with Sirfetch'd and the Altaria, and you're going to see something really peculiar happen here. As soon as he sees the Stunfisk, Silent Beast swaps into Altaria. Now what does that tell HouseStark? That tells HouseStark that this is his soft counter. In show 6, you never want to swap in your hard counter to something for the reason that we just illustrated, because if you swap in the Sirfetch'd, you get met with a hard counter, whether it's Noctowl or Trevenant, you're going to get really punished. So he goes into his soft counter, his safe switch, which is Altaria. Very, very interesting safe switch given the fact that HouseStark has a Galarian Stunfisk and an Alolan Ninetales here. Maybe he's trying to pull out that Alolan Ninetales, farm it down with the Bastiodon, and then sweep with the Sirfetch'd in the back. Maybe that's Silent Beast strategy as well. But anyways, we see the swap here, and HouseStark does something very interesting. He stays put, right? He doesn't reach for his own switch, but he's got to manage his timer very carefully here because he can't allow a situation where eventually his Noctowl gets lined up against that Bastiodon, or the Trevenant gets lined up against it in a unfavorable timing scenario. So we're going to see 2 rock slides come off here from HouseStark. Again, a charge move takes a few seconds, ability to charge move as well, 5 mud shots, 5 seconds for that plus the minigame animation. And HouseStark is going to stay for a little while here. He wants that Altaria to dump some of its energy because he realizes it's very close to 2 sky attacks. So he's going to let this first one through. Obviously a lot of resisted damage here, no need to shield this. And he's going to go for a 3rd rock slide, actually attempting to throw on a CMP, but doesn't quite get there. He's going to throw, Silent Beast overfarmed, so he's going to throw before. He's going to KO. Now watch this right here. HouseStark spamming the Trevenant. He's spamming that Trevenant on the right. And the reason is, he realizes that Silent Beast swapped in his soft counter to Galarian Stunfisk, which is not much of a counter at all, right? Altaria, very poor matchup, but he realizes there's a harder counter in the back, and it's gotta be that Sirfetch'd. So he's reaching straight for the Trevenant. And now that the only flyer on Silent Beast's team is gone, the Trevenant is just incredible, right? Because you have the mirror match against the opposing Trevenant, you have the possible Galarian Stunfisk, you have the Sableye, which is a bit tough, you have the Bastiodon and the Sirfetch'd. So it's very safe now for HouseStark to go to his Trevenant and also preserve his Stunfisk for that Bastiodon in the back. So let's see what happens. He's spamming that switch right there. You can see him just pressing on it constantly. And we're going to see the Sirfetch'd come in, and he pivots right to the Trevenant. Now, you might say, okay, this is bad because we're going to put that Noctowl up against the Bastiodon. Well, he's going to chip away at that Bastiodon as much as possible and then bring in that Stunfisk. And now that both trainers are switch locked, even if the timer expires and Silent Beast reaches for his Sirfetch'd, HouseStark can go for the Noctowl. So we're going to see the Trevenant face off against the Bastiodon here. Bastion's got a very slow turn interval. You always want to time your Shadow Claws, and HouseStark does an expert job doing that. It's really weird because Bastion throws 3-turn Smackdowns, and Trevenant throws 2-turn Shadow Claws. So typically you want to do 7 Shadow Claws for 14 turns versus 7 of those Smackdowns from Bastiodon. So we're going to see the Shadow Ball come through here, which is as expected. But my point I was going to say is that once the opponent switches, it takes 1 turn to switch. So they actually end up on even intervals. You're actually ending your turn on turn 4 instead of turn 3. So the Flamethrower is going to come through here. This is fine for HouseStark because he has this Galarian Stunfisk and he has that Noctowl as well. He gets a Seed Bomb as well, which is really, really nice here as he looks to KO the Bastiodon. And I think Silent Beast recognizes this is really uphill. Even though he still has 2 Protect Shields, Sirfetch'd not known for its bulk. Comes in with the Sirfetch'd, 1 counter, and this allows Stark to line things up. He taps immediately for that Noctowl. Obviously, doesn't even need the Stunfisk in order to beat this this team here in game 1. So I think the fast move pressure is the key here. He's not even going to throw a charge attack because the wing attacks are dealing that super effective damage. And we see a spicy moveset here from Silent Beast, and I actually don't agree entirely with what Silent Beast does here. Granted, it is day 2. Silent Beast has been on stream before. He's undefeated until this point, so it makes sense that he would throw the Brave Bird here. But typically in Show 6, you don't want to reveal that second move, that wild card move. If you do have Night Slash, you don't want to reveal it. If you do have the Brave Bird or the Close Combat, you don't show it in Game 1 because you might want to use it in Game 2. So Silent Beast unfortunately loses with 2 shields remaining there in Game 1 to HouseStark. Just expertly played by Alex there. We're going to skip ahead here to the second game in just a moment, but you can see the teams there on the screen. And yeah, HouseStark's team actually caught his stream after Baltimore Regionals, and he was talking about how he built the team. He wanted the maximum flexibility. He wanted Pokemon that were bulky, that didn't really rely on switch advantage too much, that could get to moves that were threatening against anything in the meta, and I think he absolutely succeeded. We see the Bastiodon come out here again, and this is interesting because it looks like Silent Beast is running the same team. He's got Bastiodon, Sirfetch'd, and the Altaria, whereas HouseStark ran the same 3 Pokemon, but he switched the order. He's got the Trevenant in the lead, maybe expecting a Sirfetch'd lead here, maybe hoping for something else, maybe, you know, yeah, maybe the Sirfetch'd lead is what he was thinking here. And it's very safe to lead Trevenant because you know the Sirfetch'd does not have Night Slash. So typically, the Trevenant lead is very strong. So let's see how HouseStark responds because he's got a hard counter in the back, and he's got to suspect there might be a Sirfetch'd back there as well. Again, HouseStark is an incredible player, the first battler in the world in Go Battle League Season 1 to reach rank 10. Before there was Legend, there was rank 10, and HouseStark was the first one to get there that we know of. Incredible, incredible player. So he lands the Shadow Ball, and Bastion goes for 1 Smackdown and the Flamethrower. These trainers really optimize their turn intervals as well. You don't want to throw 2 Smackdowns because that's 6 turns. And we actually see the shield here from the Trevenant and the swap into the Sirfetch'd. Now, HouseStark has a decision to make here. He can either come in with Noctowl, thinking that's his best positive matchup here, or he can try to control switch. Now, if he tries to control switch, it's a bit tough because then he risks getting his Noctowl lined up against the Altaria, which, you know, could be a little, or excuse me, his Noctowl lined up against Bastiodon, which could be pretty tough. But he's already seen 2 Pokemon as well. He's seen the Bastiodon and he's seen the Sirfetch'd. Does that tell Alex that this is the exact same team that Silent Beast ran in Game 1? He's already seen 2 of the 3 pieces. Let's see what he decides. I love this play here to go for the Seed Bomb as well because he built up to the Shadow Ball. Sirfetch'd not very bulky, so straight Seed Bomb is actually quite threatening. And he goes for the CMP here, and this is very tough because, again, that question, that decision. Do I try to one-shield this and push for switch because I have an energy lead, or do I let this go, maybe try to get a C-bomb and give up switch? That is the question that Alex is facing with right now, and in these 5 seconds, he's going to decide what to do. Now he actually does decide to no shield, hangs on with just a little bit of HP, and reaches the C-bomb, which is absolutely huge. I don't think we see a shield here from Silent Beast. We actually do. Okay, taking both shields there, but Silent Beast feels like getting switch is very, very important, so he is willing to invest. In comes the Noctowl. We know it's 7 wing attacks for the Shadow, or excuse me, for the Sky attack here, and just 1 more for the Shadow Ball. Going for the Brave Bird right away, I really like this play. This puts a lot of pressure on Alex, and you also saw that he waited until the very last moment to throw this Brave Bird. He wants as many counters as possible, because it's a lot of neutral damage adding up on the Noctowl. Now, Stark has to decide, is this Altaria in the back? Is this the same team that I just saw? Because if it's Trevenant, it could be very, very tough to defeat this team. If it's Bassy Trev, that's a lot for Galarian Stunfisk to chew through, but I think he makes his final decision here, and he does let it go. Brave Bird does not KO the Noctowl, but he does reach for the swap. As soon as he realizes he can save this Pokemon as a potential 3rd shield, swap it in, absorb remove, he's going to make that play every single time. He's only got Stunfisk left. Silent Beast has the Altaria. Silent Beast has probably figured out at this point that it is the Stunfisk. He switches in the alt, and you can see the trainers nodding on the stage. They kind of know this is a very tough matchup. I think Stunfisk needs 3 rock slides here, and if we project out, Sky Attack takes about 6 mudshots worth of energy to load. Moonblast is maybe 7.5 or so, so 15 turns for 3 rock slides. You're going to see maybe 2 Moonblasts. But the real move you're afraid of here is that Bastiodon's Flamethrower. You do not want to get super low, or, you know, within medium health or so, and take a Flamethrower, because that would bring things a little bit too close for comfort. So we do see the Moonblast get fired here. Looking for an attack drop. Again, Silent Beast is really just fighting tooth and nail here, because this is day 2 of the regional tournament. You don't want to just lay down and let your opponent take a big win. And if he can land that and potentially also get to a Flamethrower, he might be in good shape. And we do see Alex as well throwing right before the Sky Attack is ready. He doesn't want to take any more damage or spend a Protect Shield. Very, very smart plays by Alex here as he does KO the Altaria. And recognizing that Bastiodon is so far behind in energy, this is very, very comfortable for House Stark. He still has a Protect Shield remaining, so again, he's just going to go ahead and pace up to this Earthquake. Very nice plays here from Alex. Earthquake is more than enough. I'm not sure, speaking to the macro factors here, I'm not sure why Silent Beast decided that Bastiodon was such a good play, because if you look at Alex's team, he's got the Alolan Ninetales that loses hard to it. He's got the Obstagoon, which beats it. The Noctowl loses very hard to it. The Stunfisk beats it very hard. The Trevenant is very neutral, but Trevenant can win if it invests shields, and the Swampert absolutely destroys Bastiodon. So you have 3 Pokemon that annihilate Bastiodon, 2 Pokemon that are weak to it, and then 1 neutral play. But Silent Beast saw something in the team composition. He's a very talented trainer. He made it to day 2 for a reason, and he thought Bastiodon was the key. 2 games in a row. Unfortunately, did not pan out. I think Galarian Stunfisk is way too strong in the current meta. It's very tough for Bastiodon players to get a strong foothold, because there's a better steel type. I just think Galarian Stunfisk is the superior steel. That being said, HouseStark does win that first round against Silent Beast, and we're gonna progress here. Now this is the winners finals. This is a best of 5 set. This is HouseStark now on the left side, same team obviously, but he's facing against ILQM. In other words, Elam. A trainer from Tampa, incredibly talented trainer. They're actually teammates on Stadium Elite as well, and I really like the poetry of this matchup, because you have HouseStark, who's one of the OG players. Season 1 Sylph has been great ever since and is always consistent, versus Elam, one of the most talented up-and-coming players in the entire world, and they're teammates, right? This is the old vet versus the new hot shot, the young gun on the scene, and I really love this comparison here. So Elam is going to be running Trevenant, Galarian Stunfisk, Altaria, Lickitung, Swampert, and Metacham. A very classic team there from Elam. I think that's a very strong Open Great League team, and it's a little more conventional than HouseStark's. HouseStark's is a little bit odd, a little bit off kilter. So let's see what happens here. As we can see the leads on the screen, Galarian Stunfisk into Altaria is a very nice lead there for HouseStark, predicting that Altaria has great play against Obstagoon, Noctowl, Trevenant, and the Swampert. I think Altaria is a solid lead here from Elam. Elam. I mean, it makes a lot of sense when you beat 4 out of 6 very heartily. It's a great play. But unfortunately, HouseStark calls it. Now, in Show 6, half of the battle is knowing how to play your team and building a good one, right? That's half of the battle. But the second half of the battle, and I cannot emphasize this enough, the second half of Show 6 is knowing what your opponent is going to do when they see your team. HouseStark did a lot of scrims prepping for Baltimore, and he knew he had an Altaria weakness. He knows it, right? If you look at this team, 4 out of 6 lose to Altaria. It's very popular in the meta because Walrein is essentially pushed out. You've got some Azumarill, Alola Ninetales, and Galarian Stunfisk to worry about, but otherwise Altaria is so dominant. We've seen it in all the regionals this weekend be very powerful. HouseStark knows that, so he knows Elam's going to see that weakness, and he leads that Galarian Stunfisk. Very, very nice lead there, predicting his opponent. HouseStark's team in full is that Galarian Stunfisk with Noctowl and Alola Ninetales, whereas Elam is running his Altaria, Galarian Stunfisk, and Swampert. So Altaria double ground is something that we're going to see time and time again throughout these matches, but let's get into the game. I know that's what you're here to see. You want to see really great players play, so let's see how they adjust. Instant swap into Galarian Stunfisk. He's one much up behind, but Elam makes that counter. He's going into his soft answer as well. Again, never sending in that Swampert, because if you send in your hard answer, you might get punished. Whereas he doesn't know HouseStark's team composition. It might not have been a bad play to send in the Swampert, but he sends it in the Galarian Stunfisk. Being one much shot ahead, HouseStark can comfortably go for the Earthquake there. It looks like Elam goes for an Earthquake of his own. Both trainers shielding early on in this matchup, excuse me. Now, these Stunfisks are very close. HouseStark is still one much shot away, and he does CMP tie as well, which is very clever. He does win the CMP exchange, which is valuable information. Maybe he wants to stay in the battle longer. Knowing he wins CMP is huge. He lands the Earthquake. Elam is going to return fire. Does HouseStark want to control switch and go down 2 shields or not? And he decides to let it go as well. Very interesting. We see the Earthquake come through, and this is gonna be a simul KO. Oh my goodness. Okay. Now, when we see the simultaneous KO, you have essentially 10 seconds to pick your next Pokemon. And this is so critical. This is so critical because if Elam has a hard counter in the back to one of these Pokemon from HouseStark, I mean, it's really tough, right? You bring in the Altaria versus the Noctowl, you're in bad shape. Maybe he has the Trevenant versus the Noctowl, that's really bad. But we see the 4 Pokemon laid out here, Noctowl and Alola Ninetales for HouseStark, and the Altaria and the Swampert for Elam. The first trainer to pick their Pokemon loses here, because as that timer ticks down, when you send out a Pokemon, the typings appear on the screen, and then the Pokemon comes out of the Pokeball. So if you reveal your Pokemon, if you send out your Swampert, it's very easy for HouseStark to just send in the Noctowl right after. So you're going to see both of these trainers wait until the very last second to send their Pokemon out, because they don't want to give away any extra information, and this is really a dice roll, because we did see the Altaria lead. Does HouseStark predict that Elam is going to show his third Pokemon here, knowing that the Noctowl was also in play, or does Elam predict the Alola Ninetales and send in the Swampert? Let's find out. Both trainers thinking it over, only a few seconds to decide, and we're going to see 3, 2, 1, select right there. And we get the Noctowl into the Swampert, and this is a little bit tough for Elam as that Alola Ninetales is still lurking in the back. Now, Noctowl does have slower pacing than Swampert. It needs 7 of those wing attacks to get to the Sky Attack, whereas Swampert needs 5 Mudshots and then 4 to get to Hydro Cannon and Hydro Cannon number 2 respectively. So typically the Noctowl will get outpaced here by the Swampert, but it does need at least 2 Hydro Cannons to KO, and the wing attacks are dealing a lot more neutral damage than the Mudshots are dealing because they are so heavily resisted. Now we're going to see a CMP, which is even more clever there because Elam does not want to allow any wing attacks through. He doesn't want to allow the Noctowl to catch up. But as we see the the HP tick down, HouseStark is confident because he knows he has the Alola Ninetales. He's already seen the Altaria, and the Swampert is getting weak. So HouseStark is never, I repeat, never going to shield his Noctowl in this situation. That final shield is reserved for Alola Ninetales. He's got the reserve card on the table at the restaurant. Nobody's sitting there, not even the CEO of Niantic. John Hankey, you can't sit in this Alola Ninetales seat because it is reserved. Now you see the Sky Attack get fired off here as well. Going for the one finger swipe there. HouseStark getting all the bubbles. Whoa, what finesse. Does KO the Swampert, reaching right for the Alola Ninetales. Here comes the Altaria, and this is a great team composition read by HouseStark. Great plays there to call that Altaria in the back. goes for the Weather Ball, and Elam, recognizing defeat, is going to allow this one through. No Protect Shield is going to be used. Very good plays by HouseStark predicting this. And I want to point out as well why the Alolan Ninetales is so good against Elam's team. As we see here, Trevenant, Galarian Stunfisk, Altaria, Lickitung, Swampert, and Medicham. There is no steel, there is no poison type on the team. There's only one steel. So there's only one charm resist. So Alolan Ninetales is very safe. You're going to see HouseStark reach for that time and time again. So game number 2, we do have the Trevenant lead with the Noctowl and the Alolan Ninetales versus Elam's Lickitung lead and Double Ground. Again, the Stunfisk and Swampert combination is so incredibly strong in the current meta, and he pinned the Trevenant right where he wants it. So from Elam's perspective, he really needs a control switch. He does not want the Trevenant to get loose and start fighting against that Swampert and Stunfisk because it deals so much damage. And for HouseStark's perspective, he's got to get out of here and he needs to find that Stunfisk. He can't allow the Alolan Ninetales to line up against the Stunfisk. He needs to discover where it is and to pin it against one of his other 2 Pokemon. So let's see how they respond. Reaches right for the Noctowl, great safe switch, and in comes the Stunfisk. And on the call here, you hear Tua Butters talk about the Noctowl versus Galarian Stunfisk matchup. It's actually a lot closer than you might think. This Noctowl with Shadow Ball puts in a ton of work against the Galarian Stunfisk, and look at that. He's going to need 3 Rock Slides to KO the normal and flying type Pokemon because it's so incredibly bulky, and the Mud Shots do basically no damage because they're so heavily resisted. So we do see the first Shadow Ball get shielded here. Elam recognizes it, and again, like we said at the beginning, he wants to control switch. He does not want Trevenant to get free. And you see HouseStark kind of tip his head there. He gets a feeling, he gets a sense. Elam is trying to do something here. He's trying to control the matchup in a certain particular way. And we do see the first second Shadow Ball come through. This Shadow Ball goes unshielded as Elam already spent his first Protect Shield. Now, HouseStark is going to farm some additional energy. Elam does not want to allow another move through, so he does pull the trigger here right before the Sky Attack. Great timing by Elam. Again, incredibly talented trainer. Very good accounts as well. And he doesn't want to take any more damage, which I think is really smart. Coming in with the Trevenant here, Elam was able to control switch at the price of his shield, and he's going to get probably 2 Rock Slides here before Alex can even get to a Shadow Ball. At this point, HouseStark is in trouble. He is in a lot of trouble because he is understaffed, under-leveraged here against the Galarian Stunfisk. He only has 1 Protect Shield, and there are 2 healthy Pokemon in the back, and this is very uphill. I mean, he spent the shield first. Elam spent the shield first to try to... okay, I think Alex could have done a few more Shadow Claws there as well. But I just want to say, he spent the shield first to control switch, and it's going to pay dividends for him here. Sorry, I didn't finish my thought. Reaching right for the Alolan Ninetales, he wants to 2-shield charm through the matchup, but Lickitung is so incredibly bulky, it's going to be very difficult for him to do. Great timing here as well. 1-turn Lick, and this goes for any 1-turn move. Water Gun, Dragon Breath, Fury Cutter, whatever you're playing, you have to recognize the turn intervals. Charm, you can do 2 of your fast moves and then throw on the 3rd turn. And it's a half second, right? So you can do 1 second of fast moves and then throw. You can say 1 Mississippi throw, 1 Mississippi throw. That's how you can time your fast and charge moves there, and Elam does a fantastic job. Coming here with the Swampert, we do see the Hydro Cannon timing his moves perfectly as well, and HouseStark starts to nod. He recognizes here that Elam is kind of overwhelming him here. He's got too much energy, he's too fast. Swampert is really going to pace up here to another double Hydro Cannon. Again, throwing 4 Mud Shots. 8 turns. Charm is a 3-turn move. You don't want to throw on alignment because then you give away 3 free turns of Charm. So he does go for the 4 Mud Shots and then the Hydro Cannon. Unable to get off this next one though because the Ninetales does fire the Weather Ball. But look at the Lickitung. Lickitung is going to come in here very, very healthy and lick right down. So Elam takes that game number 2. And now we are all tied up in the winners finals. Well, Trevenant comes in and... Sorry, Trevenant's a bit of an afterthought at this point because it just cannot do enough to Lickitung to win. So anyways, Elam is victorious there in game number 2. He does tie up the series. Going into game number 3 here, I try to get the timestamp just right. Let's see how close I get. Thank you so much, everybody, for watching. I'm going to pin HouseStark's Twitter feed down here so you can give him a follow. Let's check out these teams first. Excuse me, we got right into the games. Let me pause here. Let me go back just a second. Whoops, sorry, chat. I always say chat. I'm so used to doing streams on Twitch. Anyways, we do see the Galarian Stunfisk lead with the Trevenant. It looks like Noctowl. So HouseStark running a familiar team. And we do see double ground here from Elam as well. Swampert, Galarian Stunfisk, and Lickitung. He doesn't have an answer for counter. And this is going to be more and more prevalent as we move through the series. HouseStark's adjustments are incredible. He notices a lot of the time that Medicham doesn't appear. Elam loves his double ground line of Swampert and Galarian Stunfisk, and he doesn't really bring a hard answer for counter besides the Altaria. So I think HouseStark is going to make some adjustments here soon, but let's see how this game number 3 goes. Instant swap into Noctowl, and he gets met by the Galarian Stunfisk again. We just played through this matchup. We saw that the Galarian Stunfisk is most comfortable when it does use one Protect Shield. Let's see if Elam plays it the same way. Elam does fire off that first Rock Slide. HouseStark takes it like a champ as expected. Does HouseStark go for the CMP? And he does. Really nice counting there by HouseStark to get the Shadow Ball here. Elam is going to decide to Protect Shield as well. He wants to maintain alignment here, just like he did in game number 2. He wants to keep that good. He wants to keep a good thing going. You know, when you're having a good time, you just want to keep it going. You want to keep the good times rolling. So we're going to see Noctowl build up to another Shadow Ball here. This time, Noctowl goes for it right on the CMP, but Elam holds his energy. Elam's going to let this first one through, and this opens up a huge window for Elam to farm some additional energy. We know 7 and 8 are the wing attack turn cycles to get to the move, so Elam is going to farm, and he gets up to the rock side here, and he's going to throw this against a Noctowl. Now, Elam wants to be ahead energy in the Stunfisk mirror, but he is unfortunately down a shield, which does make this matchup a bit more difficult. Coming here with his own Stunfisk, he does have a lot of energy though, so he wants to get the shield back promptly. HouseStark has 2 shields, but he still goes for the Earthquake. I love this aggressive play, but unfortunately, HouseStark does not let it through. He calls it. He says this is going to be the heavy-hitting Earthquake, and it is. Great shield by HouseStark. And now his Stunfisk is ahead on energy, going straight for the Earthquake here as well. Elam, only 1 shield remaining. He's done a lot of work with the Stunfisk. He's going to let this one go. He's got a very hard answer in Swampert. So let's see how he responds. Reaching right for the Trevenant, coming in here, and it's Lickitung in the back, and you can see HouseStark's body language. He's like, oh man, come on. This is not at all what I wanted to see, but the Lickitung is such a problem here for HouseStark. And speaking of lack of counter users, Double Ground and Lickitung, that Obstagoon, I'll tell you what, that Obstagoon is looking much better by the moment, as we do see the C-Bomb from the Trevenant get fired off here. Lickitung incredibly bulky. We've seen this matchup a dozen times during the last season of regionals, and again, the result is the same. C-Bomb only does a little bit of damage. Going up here for the Power Whip just before that last Seed Bomb. Great counting by Elam. Is this Power Whip enough? It is resisted, but I think it is enough. Coming through here. No, it's not. Trevenant does hang on for the Seed Bomb. He's unable to KO with the Licks, but he doesn't need to use the shield here. He's very confident in his lineup here, as he does know HouseStark has the Stunfisk, and HouseStark is going to find out that the Swampert is going to come out immediately here. Actually, can't quite switch out yet, so he does go here for the Power Whip. This is very, very tough for HouseStark. You can see the body language playing out here. He knows he needs too much energy in too little time. It's going to be very hard for him to come back here. And that Power Whip puts the Galarian Stunfisk down into Hydro Cannon range. Even from a normal Swampert, 1 Hydro will be enough. He goes for the bait here, which is definitely the smart play. You want to make up as much ground as possible. No pun intended. We're going to see the shield come up from Elam, but Elam knows he's got the double Hydros. That's all he needs to win this. HouseStark has 1 shield. He'll use it, but you see him shrugging on the stage. He's like, you know what? I don't think I can come back from this. This is just too much. Great plays from Elam here. Again, proving why he's one of the best players in the world. And the double ground strategy is so good. In Go Battle League, we've seen typically Skarmory double ground, being Skarmory, Swampert, Galarian Stunfisk, or we've seen Trevenant double ground. That's another very popular team. Sometimes even the Altaria double ground, right? Because you want to beat those grass types. Jump into game number 4 here, I believe. Yes, number 4. Elam is 1 win away. Elam is 1 win away from taking this series and advancing to the grand finals. HouseStark needs to muster a comeback here. He needs to win 2 games straight, and he needs to make some key adjustments as well, because again, this double ground, normal, double ground, Altaria combination that Elam has been running is really tough. So in the moment, you have a few minutes to think things over. HouseStark needs to dial in here, make some adjustments, maybe switch up his team a bit. Maybe the Shadow Swampert needs to come out and play here. Maybe the Obstagoon needs to be a factor, but we're heading into this game here. This could be decisive. HouseStark, back against the wall, needs to win some battles here. We've got Noctowl into Altaria. Not the best lead, as Altaria is typically the dominant flyer. The longer this matchup goes on, the better it gets for the Dragon, as it does deal a lot of neutral damage. But we see how Stark made an adjustment. Look at these teams here. on the left and right respectively. Oh my god, wrong time to pause. Anyway, we do see HouseStark running the Noctowl with the Glaring Stunfisk and the Obstagoon, praying for no Medicham, and Elam does not bring the Medicham. He does have the Altaria with the Lickitung and Swampert. Not going double ground this time, which is interesting. Maybe anticipating that Swampert coming out here from HouseStark. I like this team read a lot from Elam, but I think HouseStark is just one step ahead. We're going to see the Altaria fire off the Sky Attack here, just build up a ton of energy. HouseStark not willing to shield. We're going to see HouseStark revert to a strategy a lot, and we've seen... I know I'm being cryptic, so I'll just say it. I'll just say it. A lot of trainers have used energy advantage, or they've used alignment to win these regional tournaments. HouseStark's main staple of his gameplay is actually shield advantage. HouseStark takes shield advantage in the matches that he wins way more often than not. And we do see the Glaring Stunfisk come in here. This is tough. Do we see a switch out from Elam? I actually... Look, you can see his body language on this on the screen. I don't think the Sky Attack is the best play here. I think you switch right for one of your neutral plays. I think you go right for Lickitung and you bank that energy because it could be more useful spent anywhere else besides his Stunfisk. But he's going to go for the Moonblast here, wanting to soften it up. Maybe he's worried about alignment. Maybe he thinks there's a hard punish for one of his Pokemon here. Maybe the Trevenant that we've seen Stark bring so many times. He wants to control switch advantage, so he's not going to force switch himself out and give HouseStark that window. But HouseStark is running a different strategy, so that plan doesn't work by Elam. He's using last game's plan when HouseStark has already moved on. We're going to see him reach for the Obstagoon immediately. Obstagoon comes out. You can see Elam shaking his head. He says, oh no, this is not the Pokemon that I wanted to see. He thought it was going to be the Trevenant, but the Obstagoon with 2 shields is really tough because it's going to ramp up these Night Slashes, hopefully get a boost, and really just chip away. He's got Lickitung in the back, and Lickitung is basically useless against this Obstagoon. He does build to the Earthquake, forcing the Protect Shield away from HouseStark. Very smart play, because you definitely don't want to give this Obstagoon too much of a window, and you don't shield the first Night Slash because you don't want to, you don't want the Obstagoon to get a boost, and then having shielded the first one, you take a lot more damage on the second. So we do see the double Hydro Cannons coming through. This is a CMP tie as well. Great play from HouseStark, and Elam is forced to shield. He's like, man, I gotta get off one more Hydro Cannon and set Licky up for some form of success because this is way too uphill. But in comes the boost, and Elam knows this is it. He sees the writing on the wall. Obstagoon is rolling here now with the boost, and the boost is going to be critical in HouseStark's ultimate victory in this game because the Hydro Cannon comes through, and check this out. 1, 2. Okay, Lickitung gets about 4 licks there, and we know it takes about 6 counters or so for Lickitung to load the Body Slam. Watch how close this matchup gets. A super effective cross chop with the boost. Watch this Goon. 5, right there. Oh my goodness, 1 or 2 licks before the Body Slam. The boost made all the difference here for HouseStark. I honestly don't think he wins this unless he sack swaps or goes to the Stunfisk. It's going to be very, very tough for him. Maybe he does still win because he does have that healthy Stunfisk in the bag. But either way, very tough matchup, very decisive game there. Now, HouseStark is still in it. Essentially, we are in a Game 5. This is a sudden death matchup. Let's check out the teams. We do see the Alola Ninetales lead from Alex, which is very interesting there. I did not expect the Alola Ninetales here, but let's look at these full team compositions. We have the Alola Ninetales with the Swampert and Obstagoon versus a Swampert, Altaria, and Galarian Stunfisk on the right. Now, this is interesting because we still don't see the Medicham from Elam. We only see one answer for a Trevenant, which is the Altaria, and we see ABA weak to Trevenant, which is really tough because HouseStark has brought the Trevenant a lot, but he went away from it in game number 4. So Elam makes a hard read here and says there is no chance, zero chance that HouseStark leads the Trevenant, and he does lead that Swampert. I think this is going to be pretty intense for Alex because you want to save that Alola Ninetales for the Altaria. You've seen it so many games in a row. You want to save that Pokemon for its best matchup, and you want to keep it away from Galarian Stunfisk. So I think he needs to control switch advantage much more than Elam does, which puts a lot of pressure on Stark. He needs to manage his shields a lot more carefully than Elam. Let's see how he responds. So Alola Ninetales is going to stay in this matchup for a little while. Again, his best answer to Altaria is on the field right now. So if it takes too much damage, he could be in a tough position going forward, as he does see Elam reach for the Hydro Cannon. Early shield call, great call. Could have been an Earthquake, which would have been devastating, but Elam tends to prefer these spammy Hydro Cannons for more reliable damage, which I think is very, very, very smart by Elam. Going for the Weather Ball here. pulling away the shield. And now that he has shield advantage, he reaches for the safe swap. Obstagoon. Oh, in comes the Altaria. This is exactly what HouseStark wants to see. He wants to pull out the Dragon Flyer to line it up against his Ninetales. Great play here by HouseStark. Hoping for another boost. Doesn't get it quite yet on the first Night Slash. Let's see if the second one yields better results. He's just going to try to chip away here. Just chip away as much as possible. And honestly, Elam probably doesn't want this Altaria to escape with too much HP. But he wants to manage his energy too. Maybe he wants double sky attacks against the Alola Ninetales. Maybe he just wants to get off one charge attack, but he throws right before that third Night Slash. Great timing here by Elam as he looks to deliver the Moonblast. And it does connect. Down goes Obstagoon. And now we see the Alola Ninetales come in. Now, HouseStark has seen Elam run this double ground strategy so often in so many different forms. I really love the Swampert play here from HouseStark. I think the Swampert play is incredible. He has not seen a single Trevenant, and the reason for that is because of that Noctowl. He's brought Noctowl enough to push Trevenant out of the equation because it's such a hard wall to Trevenant. It doesn't make any sense for Elam to bring it and risk getting absolutely eaten, picked apart, just absolutely demolished by the Noctowl, because the Noctowl can straight wing attack down in all shield scenarios and exit with 100 energy. It's just really nasty. But he does get the alignment he wants. The Sky Attack does come through, and HouseStark again opting for shield advantage. He sees the Altaria is so weak. He says, you know what? 2 shield Swampert, 2 shield Shadow Swampert. You've got no shot. You've got no chance. Elam is shaking his head a little bit there. He knows it's going to be tough, but he has a lot of energy on his own Swampert, so he's going to fire off the first Hydro Cannon here. This matchup actually gets very, very close, and it comes down to a split-second decision. You'll see the first Hydro Cannon. The second one goes right away. HouseStark is really bummed out. He doesn't want all this energy to get spent, and he wants to save that Protect Shield because he still needs to manage that third Pokemon in the back. Goes for the full Mud Shot. Down is he on the 4 cycle or the 5 cycle, and he gets a Hydro Cannon here as well. HouseStark crippling here, buckling under the pressure. This is very, very tough. He's got to spend the shield, and it puts him in a really tough position. Now, let's look at this matchup. We have Swampert with Earthquake plus a Mud Shot versus Galarian Stunfisk with no energy. We know the Galarian Stunfisk needs 8 Mud Shots to get to the Earthquake, and that's going to be more than enough. Maybe even the Rock Slide at this range plus the Mud Shots would do it. So HouseStark essentially has 5 Mud Shots to play with here. That's his margin. He's got 5 Mud Shots, and if he throws a charge move, he gives up one of those Mud Shots. If he throws on CMP and Elam shields, and then Elam throws a Rock Slide immediately thereafter because it's charge move priority, Alex loses. He has 10 turns of wiggle room here, and it's not enough time to get to 2 Earthquakes. It's just not. Even though he has all this energy, he's up 8 Mud Shots. Maybe he could do it. Maybe he could bait the Hydro Cannon, but if Elam calls that bait, he can't get to triple Hydro Cannon. He just can't do it. If Elam no shields the first Hydro Cannon, HouseStark loses. If Elam shields the first Earthquake, HouseStark loses. If Elam CMP ties on the 5th Mud Shot, HouseStark loses. There's so many lose cons here, and only 1 or 2 win conditions for HouseStark. Let's see what he does. He goes straight for the Earthquake. Elam thinking things over. He's got to make a decision here, and HouseStark gets it through. He can't believe it. He stands up. He can't believe it. That was a coin flip decision. Oh my goodness. HouseStark went straight for the aggressive Earthquake. Elam tried to call the Hydro Cannon, but it's not, and he delivers a strike to get the KO. Incredible play by Alex, but guess what? Guess what, everybody? That was the winners finals. That was a best of 5. Elam defeats the losers finalists and ends up in the grand finals. Now, the way this works in the Play Pokemon tournament is that you have to, if you're coming from the losers bracket, you have to beat HouseStark not once, but twice. You beat him the first time to reset the bracket, and then the second time is just a pure, free best of 5. But this time, Elam needs to win, and then he needs to beat HouseStark a second time. So based on the 5 games they played, HouseStark has had some time to think about the matchups. He's had some time to think about adjustments. HouseStark was pushed to the limit in the first series. He went all the way to game 5, and you could say it could have gone either way. If that was Hydro Cannon, again, HouseStark loses. But he pulled out the victory. Does Elam take him to the end of the earth again in the grand finals? Let's find out. We do see the Galarian Stunfisk, and already HouseStark has adopted his strategy. He's got 3 Pokemon that take either neutral or super effective damage from counter, because he says there is no shot No chance that you were bringing that Medicham. And guess what? No Medicham from Elam. Elam is running the Altaria. He does have his Swampert, and he makes a safe swap right into the Galarian Stunfisk. We've seen this maneuver before, but he is one much shot behind, coming with the Obstagoon to punish this Galarian Stunfisk. Great play here by HouseStark. Does he go for the cross chop? He actually goes for the cross chop, attempting to CMP, but because that switch was one turn late, he doesn't quite get there. So first Earthquake comes through. Elam wants to deliver a Rock Slide here. Obstagoon is not a typical fighter, obviously because it's a Dark Normal, so it does not resist Rock Slide. It has counter like a fighter, but only fighting resists Rock. So, excuse me, fighters do resist Rock, but other typings do as well. I'm just saying only true fighters resist Rock, and Obstagoon is a pseudo fighter. Go straight for the Cross Chop, which I really like. This is an aggressive play as well. Elam knows he can survive a Night Slash, but probably would... Oh, lets a Cross Chop through, takes a lot of damage. And it looks like a CMP as well. Going for the second cross chop here. Elam going to let this one through. He says, you know what? I'm not going to go down shields. Going down shields early has punished me in the past, especially if there's no Alola Ninetales back there, because HouseStark has done this as well. He's peeled away that first Protect Shield and then 2-shielded the Alola Ninetales to mixed success, right? Mixed results. The Lickitung was very problematic for HouseStark in the first series, but the combination of Noctowl and Obstagoon has pushed Lickitung out of the equation, and now Elam is relying more on the Altaria. So Elam is worried about the Alola Ninetales, and giving up Switch here does not help him. So this is very interesting to see how this matchup has evolved from the Winners Finals to the Grand Finals. Waiting out that Switch timer, he's going to go ahead and come in here with the Altaria, I assume. And he does. He needs as much time as possible just in case HouseStark makes a switch or does something funny. This Night Slash is not much more than chip, as we already know. Oh, but he does get the boost and 2 extra counters. You know, it's some meaningful damage. Let's see if it makes a difference in the end. Goes for the Galarian Stunfisk, fast swap into the Swampert, and he's met by the Noctowl. This is a matchup here where the trainers just need to know. Do you win the 1 shield versus Noctowl? Do you win the 2 shield? And what I mean when I say that is if both trainers invest 1 Protect Shield, which Pokemon comes out on top? A lot of these trainers going into these Play Pokemon tournaments, they just know. They know if I'm up 2-1, even in a bad matchup, even if it's Medicham versus Trevenant, they know they can win the matchup. They just have it memorized. They know if their opponent needs to throw the Seed Bomb bait. They know if they need to land the Shadow Ball, etc., etc. So maybe Elam and HouseStark already know the result of this 4-shield matchup. Maybe they don't, but we're going to see. The longer this goes on, the better it gets because it opens up an opportunity for a switch. And I think that both of these trainers have 1 eyeball on the screen and 1 eyeball down there on the switch timer. First Hydro Cannon does come through. We know Noctowl is a tanky bird, can absolutely take 1. HouseStark going for the swipes there instead of the single finger, maybe a little bit more nervous. Nah, I'm just making up commentary at this point, but it's funny. We do see the first shield come up from Elam as well, giving up that first Protect Shield. You see the CMP tie here. Again, not willing to let the Noctowl catch up on energy, wanting to kind of rein it in there by not allowing extra wing attacks to come through, because then you start to close the turn interval. Instead of 7, it becomes 6 to the Sky Attack, and it does get a little bit closer. Second shield coming up from Elam as well. He knows the Swampert is the key because that Galarian Stunfisk is still lurking in the back. He's going to try to switch out here. Can he beat the timer? He actually goes for the Hydro here as well. Do we see a shield from Alex? No. He's putting it all on that Galarian Stunfisk. Noctowl finally goes down after the third Hydro Cannon. In comes the Galarian Stunfisk. Now the win condition here. The win condition here for Elam is to catch a move on the Altaria. HouseStark still has 2 shields, but Elam has 2 Hydro Cannons, and the third Hydro Cannon would bring this Galarian Stunfisk perilously close to KO. But the Stunfisk needs more than just a Rock Slide. It does need the Earthquake to KO. So if Elam makes an instant switch and catches an Earthquake, this could get very problematic for HouseStark. However, you could also argue that when Altaria comes out, it gets single Rock Slide and maybe try to Mud Shot down, maybe undercharge a second Rock Slide, Mud Shot down, but it'd still be a lot more competitive. And there's always that chance that Elam could find a way to win. Don't ever count him out. He's a very, very talented player. Do you see the first Hydro Cannon coming through? HouseStark does not want to get EQ'd through 2 shields, so he does honor the Hydro Cannon and shield it up. Okay, he does throw 1 Mud Shot and go for the Earthquake, and Elam knows. He knows this matchup is pretty much over because the Earthquake is more than enough. And Galarian Stunfisk, just like we saw against Silent Beast number 4, is just so incredible. It's just such a versatile Pokemon, and without hard punishes, it just runs the meta. I mean, Altaria is a very dominant Pokemon as well, but Galarian Stunfisk is here to stay. If you are playing in the Play Pokemon Regional Tournament circuit this year or next year, please make sure that you try to catch a Galarian Stunfisk in the wild or hatch one from an egg. It's just irreplaceable. It's an incredible Pokemon. Second Rock Slide comes through. HouseStark comfortably with gas left in the tank, with extra time to spare, extra HP, extra shield to spare, wins game 1. Let's see. Going to game 2 here of the grand finals. Again, Elam needs to force a bracket reset. If he can't do that, then it is over. We do see the Obstagoon lead here from HouseStark with the Noctowl and the Alola Ninetales, and the Stunfisk lead here with the Swampert and the Altaria. Again, reverting back to the double ground with Altaria. Elam moves his order around a bit. He changes things up a bit, but still, he really loves that double ground. And HouseStark, I guess, switch is a little bit important here, but I think shields are more important. He just needs to maintain Obstagoon versus Stunfisk, and he knows that, because if Stunfisk gets loose, it could line up against the Noctowl and the Alola Ninetales, and that's really detrimental. And I think that he just wants to maintain the matchup. So let's see how he spends his shields, and when the pressure is on HouseStark to control the alignment, he's going to play a little bit differently, I assume. Because right for the cross chop there, I would like this play a lot to do some meaningful damage early on, maybe put that Stunfisk into more manageable HP range. A lot of Obstagoons like to go for the Night Slash first to try to get the boost, and we see a switch out here from Elam. He goes right into the Swampert. Now, what do you think that means? What is he trying to pull out here? Is he trying to pull out a target that Altaria can farm down? Is he trying to pull out the Trevenant? Is he trying to pull out the Mirror Swampert? It's a very interesting switch here, but I like the switch. I like the switch a lot. You keep the Stunfisk away from the counter user, which is always a good plan. First Night Slash comes through, hoping for no boost on the Obstagoon. HouseStark as well, the pressure has shifted over to his shoulders again because Elam switched out. As the switch timers get too far displaced, the Galarian Stunfisk could punish his Noctowl and Alola Ninetales in the back. So when does HouseStark make the switch into his Noctowl? Or does he call the... Okay, he actually goes for it there, trying to catch a Hydro Cannon, or maybe even an Earthquake, who knows. But first Hydro Cannon comes through here. Noctowl really needing to maintain switch, but he's given the Swampert a ton of energy. And you can see Alex grimacing here a bit, maybe trying to go over the counts in his head. He's given Swampert a huge lead, and just like with the rabbit and the tortoise in the race, you do not want to give the rabbit a big energy lead because it will become very problematic. Second shield the second Hydro Cannon gets fired off here. We don't see the shield come up. HouseStark again not wanting to invest shields, but it's a CMP as well. HouseStark has a decision to make. What does he do? Does he try to maintain switch? Yes, he needs to control switch in this matchup, so he does shield up that third Hydro Cannon. Going for the Sky Attack here, and Elam is going to let it go, giving up switch here, and it's an undercharge. He gets 2 wing attacks, maximizing the energy, closing that interval. Now he only needs 5 for the next move. Let's see what Elam starts to do. He's already tapping the Shadow Ball because he's expecting the Galarian Stunfisk. He reevaluates and comes back to the Shadow Ball because he can reach it here with his Noctowl. And HouseStark has me feeling pretty good. He's got the Alola Ninetales, he's got the counter user, he's got alignment. All of the cards are in Alex's hand right here. He even gets to the Shadow Ball. This is like extra bonus. He doesn't even really need that, but it does help him. So we're going to see the Alola Ninetales come in here. Switch timers are refreshed, so he comes in comfortably. If switch timers were not aligned, he would probably wait, because he does not want that Stunfisk to come in too early and get off some energy against the Alola Ninetales. Charm's coming through. Elam's in a really tough spot. He shakes his head. He knows he's fighting a very uphill battle. Goes for the Sky Attack here. And instant swap. Goes for the Rock Slide as well. Very clever play. HouseStark acknowledges it with a nod. He knows Rock Slide would be super effective. He actually lets this one through, which is a bit debatable, but Alola Ninetales still has a lot of HP. Going for the Obstagoon here. He definitely wants to shield an Earthquake. Or excuse me, he definitely does not want to take an Earthquake here, because then he's just going to run out of HP. And it's very tough against a two shielded Dragon Breath user like Altaria. Gets the first Protect Shield away from Elam. Elam goes for the Rock Slide. This is a huge call from HouseStark. And he does shield it up. Oh, that's so tough, because if it gets to the Earthquake here, it could be lights out. But Galarian Stunfisk is so weak, and HouseStark keeps going for these relentless cross chops. So Elam is at lower HP than he would have been if he was going for the Night Slashes. Again, closing these windows of opportunities, not allowing his opponent's Stunfisk to get too far ahead. I love these plays from HouseStark. The early cross chop is also a signature of how he plays these matchups, and I really think it's very special. Elam does get off one more move here. If this is Earthquake, HouseStark knows he's going to be in a lot of trouble. But it's just a Rock Slide, and you see him kind of pivot his head there. He knows it. He's like, oh man, this is actually great news. Shields are gone. Obstagoon looking for the big Night Slash here and does reach it. Elam knows he needed to farm down to have any kind of shot here because he needs to load a Sky Attack for that Alola Ninetales. HouseStark does not want to allow him to get any more additional energy, and he knows that the charm damage will apply on turn number 2. So if Elam is 1 Dragon Breath away from a move, he will get the Sky Attack. If Elam is 2 Dragon Breaths away from a Sky Attack, he will not get it. If he's 3, he will not get it. And guess what? He's not there. So HouseStark gets a KO with the charm. Incredible snipe there. Counter was not enough. In comes the Glaring Stunfisk. 2 charms will do the trick. He needed to swap in there, because if the Altaria farms down the Obstagoon, then he has a Sky Attack loaded, maybe closer to a Moonblast perhaps. Then he's able to Moonblast the Alola Ninetales and win it. Or even Sky Attack would have been enough. So HouseStark needed to make the switch. Elam was 1 Dragon Breath away. We saw this earlier. Lickitung, 1 lick away from the Body Slam against Stark's Obstagoon. Altaria, 1 Dragon Breath away from the Sky Attack against the Alola Ninetales. If Alex hesitates a half second, if he changes his mind for a half second, he loses this game. Winning game number 2, he is 1 win away. Elam needs to win 3 straight to reset the bracket, and then 3 more in addition to that, but HouseStark's adjustments are just so absolutely busted. Alright, we have game number 3 here of the Grand Finals. Obstagoon, Noctowl, Alola Ninetales. Same team as before, but this time Elam switched it up, and to his detriment, he is not ready for the Obstagoon. HouseStark called him. He called him on the 8th game in their competitive history and said, we played 7 times. You're not bringing Medicham on the 8th game. You're not going to bring it. And if you do, I've got 2 hard counters for it. So we do see the Trevenant, Swampert, and Glaring Stunfisk double ground here again from Elam. He was really wed to the strat. He really loves the strategy, but there's no Altaria to be seen. So switch is a little bit more important here for Alex to control. Let's see how he manages it. Going up here, not on the CMP, opting for the extra counter as well. Now he's at 6 counters. Trevenant needs 5 Shadow Claws for every Seed Bomb, just as Obstagoon needs 5 counters for every Night Slash. However, Trevenant needs 3 Seed Bombs to KO, and Obstagoon only needs 2 Night Slashes to KO. First super effective Night Slash comes through. Elam knows he's in a tough spot. He also hasn't switched out. He hasn't switched out of a really tough lead. What does that tell Alex? There is something else weak to Obstagoon in the back, and I just need to find it. Going for the second Seed Bomb here. Again, 3 Seed Bombs are the recipe for success. And he only has 2 so far. Alex going to overcharge, which I really love here. Could have done 1 more counter, hypothetically, but this is still incredible because he does have a lot of HP. Could probably still get to a move against any Pokemon on Elam's roster besides Medicham. Coming with the Swampert, instant swap into the Noctowl. Instant swap. He knows there's a second Pokemon weak to Obstagoon in the back because Elam did not switch out. That's why he switches. And this is tough because he can bring out the Stunfisk now against the Noctowl, but he does ensure that Obstagoon still gets some more play. Switches right for that Glaring Stunfisk after the Swampert has loaded a Hydro Cannon. Now, with the energy lead, this matchup gets even more tough for the Glaring Stunfisk because Noctowl can pace through these moves relatively quickly, and with the energy lead, like I just mentioned, Shadow Balls are going to come through a lot faster than in previous matches. We've seen Elam one-shield through the Noctowl matchup twice so far. Does he do the same thing a 3rd time? That's the question. First Rock Slide comes through. Looking for the second Shadow Ball here. Again, a little bit faster than he's used to. Elam, no Protect Shield here on the second Shadow Ball, but he will likely shield the 3rd. As we see there, Stunfisk getting kind of low. He needs 2 Rock Slides, and luckily he's got them both in the bank. But the thing is, you can't Mud Shot down. You cannot Mud Shot down a Noctowl after this 1 Rock Slide without taking at least 2 moves. So Elam forced to throw his energy, and this is so tough. You see HouseStark shaking his head. He says, yes, spend the energy. I do not want you to get to an Earthquake. I want to be very manageable for the Obstagoon. Does reach immediately for it, goes right for the Night Slash, does not give Elam a chance to switch. Elam shakes his head. He knows the pressure is too much here. Alex really pouncing on his opponent. Shields it up. Reaching for the rock side here because Obstagoon is very low. What does HouseStark decide to do? Does he save that Protect Shield advantage? And he does. 2 shield, Alola Ninetales coming in here. He needs, 2 Charms to KO the Stun Fist, but in comes the Swampert. Swampert wanting to, great turn interval there by Elam, by the way. Great management of the turns, not letting extra Charms come through. Incredible play. First Hydro Cannon comes through. Elam throws his hand up. He knows this is a lot for Swampert to chew through. Great timing again, going for the second Hydro Cannon. HouseStark knows he just needs to shield 2 Hydro Cannons and then get to 2 more Charms at most against the Galarian Stunfisk, and he will win the Baltimore Regional Championships, but he's got to play everything perfectly going for the Weather Ball here. He wants to pull away that final Protect Shield and any advantage that Elam could have. Elam going to do a single Mud Shot and a Hydro Cannon, I suspect, and he does. He knows he can only tank maybe 1 more Charm. HouseStark needs to work through the Water Ground type Pokemon to lock this up. You see the tension on the stage. 1 more Charm. No, Hydro Cannon comes through. Second Charm is it. In comes the Galarian Stunfisk. Ninetales. Oh my goodness. Going for the Weather Ball there. HouseStark freezing out his opponent, Elam. Winter is here, and HouseStark is your Baltimore Regional Champion. What an incredible play, and look at these 2 friends on stage. HouseStark giving the very deserved praise to Elam, one of the best players in the world as well. Wow, incredible plays by both of these trainers. I hope this gave some insights because this Show 6 format is so different from the Go Battle League, and Show 6 is the premier competitive format. If you enjoyed this video, please leave me a like, comment, and subscribe if you really loved it and you want to see more. If you want to see more regional breakdowns like this, just let me know. I'll do my best to go into the minds of these trainers and give you every insight I possibly can. There are casters, Tua Butters, and Gabby Snyder on camera as well. Oh my gosh, I clicked 3 times and Butters has blinked 3 times. And I keep freezing on his blinks. There we go. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. I hope you enjoyed it. Shout out to HouseStark. I'll leave his Twitter bio in the comments, in the description, so you can go and follow him. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.